Welcome to Additional Sheet. In this video we will go through less top 50 multiple choice questions and answers. Let's start our video. What does less stand for? Option A, leaner style sheets. Option B, larger style sheets. Option C, less style syntax. Option D, lightweight style sheets. The correct answer is option A, leaner style sheets. In less, how do you declare a variable? Option A, variable value. Option B, dollar variable value. Option C, hashtag variable value. Option D, variable value. The correct answer is option A, variable value. What is the purpose of the mixin in less? Option A, to create loops. Option B, to group CSS rules and reuse them. Option C, to define variables. Option D, to perform mathematical operations. The correct answer is option B, to group CSS rules and reuse them. How do you import another less file into the current file? Option A, import file name, less. Option B, hashtag import file name, less. Option C, import file name, less. Option D, include file name, less. The correct answer is option A, import file name, less. Which of the following is used to create nested selectors in less? Option A. Option B. Option C. Option D, dollar. The correct answer is option A. What is the purpose of the darken function in less? Option A, to make a color lighter. Option B, to make a color darker. Option C, to change the opacity of a color. Option D, to convert a color to grayscale. The correct answer is option B, to make a color darker. How do you comment out a block of code in less? Option A. Option B. Option C. Option D, hash. The correct answer is option A. What does the escape function in less do? Option A, escapes special characters in a string. Option B, converts a value to uppercase. Option C, rounds a number to the nearest integer. Option D, concatenates two strings. The correct answer is option A, escapes special characters in a string. How do you use the guard statement in a mixin to apply styles conditionally? Option A, guard. Option B, if condition. Option C, guard condition. Option D, condition when. The correct answer is option C, guard condition. What does the extend feature in less do? Option A, extends the length of a property. Option B, extends the lifetime of a mixin. Option C, extends a selector with the styles of another selector. Option D, extends the scope of a variable. The correct answer is option C, extends a selector with the styles of another selector. How do you round a number to the nearest integer in less? Option A, ceil. Option B, floor. Option C, round. Option D, int. The correct answer is option C, round. How can you import a CSS file without processing it as less? Option A, import CSS filename.css. Option B, hashtag import filename.css. Option C, import filename.css. Option D, include filename.css. The correct answer is option A, import CSS filename.css. What is the purpose of the important keyword unless? Option A, specifies the importance of a mixin. Option B, forces a rule to override other rules. Option C, marks a variable as important. Option D, indicates a deprecated feature. The correct answer is option B, forces a rule to override other rules. How do you use the when keyword in a mixin to apply styles conditionally? Option A, when condition. Option B, condition when. Option C, if condition. Option D, apply when condition. The correct answer is option B, condition when. What does the E function in less do? Option A, evaluates a mathematical expression. Option B, escapes special characters in a string. Option C, rounds a number to the nearest integer. Option D, converts a value to uppercase. The correct answer is option B, escapes special characters in a string. How can you import a file only if it exists in less? Option A, import filename, less if exists. Option B, import once filename, less. Option C, import optional filename, less. Option D, hashtag import if exists filename, less. The correct answer is option C, import optional filename, less. Which of the following is used to create a loop in less? Option A, loop. Option B, for. Option C, each. Option D, while. The correct answer is option C, each. How do you set default values for mixin parameters in less? Option A, mixin param value. Option B, mixin param value. Option C, mixin param value. Option D, mixin param value. ... The correct answer is option A, mixin param value. What is the purpose of the when keyword in a mixin? Option A, specifies conditional styles for the mixin. Option B, declares variables within the mixin. Option C, indicates mixin parameters. Option D, sets default values for mixin parameters. The correct answer is option A, specifies conditional styles for the mixin. How can you concatenate two strings in less? Option A, string 1, string 2. Option B, concat string 1, string 2. Option C, join string 1, string 2. Option D, combine string 1, string 2. The correct answer is option A, string 1, string 2. What is the purpose of the lighten function in less? Option A, to make a color lighter. Option B, to make a color darker. Option C, to change the opacity of a color. Option D, to convert a color to grayscale. The correct answer is option A, to make a color lighter. How do you use the not keyword in a selector in less? Option A, class not, exclude. Option B, class.not, exclude. Option C, class, exclude not. Option D, not, class, exclude. The correct answer is option A, class not, exclude. What is the purpose of the unit function in less? Option A, converts a value to a specific unit. Option B, rounds a number to the nearest integer. Option C, checks if a value has a unit. Option D, converts a value to uppercase. The correct answer is option A, converts a value to a specific unit. How can you import a file from an external URL in less? Option A, import URL http example.com file, less. Option B, import http example.com file, less. Option C, hashtag import http example.com file, less. Option D, import http example.com file, less. The correct answer is option A, import URL http example.com file, less. What does the call function do in less? Option A, calls a mixin. Option B, calls a JavaScript function. Option C, calls a variable. Option D, calls a selector. The correct answer is option A, calls a mixin. How do you declare a constant in less? Option A, constant value. Option B, $constant value. Option C, hashtag constant value. Option D, constant value. The correct answer is option A, constant value. What is the purpose of the lighten function in less? Option A, to make a color lighter. Option B, to make a color darker. Option C, to change the opacity of a color. Option D, to convert a color to grayscale. The correct answer is option A, to make a color lighter. How can you use the guard statement in a mixin to handle multiple conditions? Option A, guard condition 1, condition 2. Option B, guard condition 1 and condition 2. Option C, guard condition 1 when condition 2. Option D, guard condition 1 or condition 2. The correct answer is option C, guard condition 1 when condition 2. What is the purpose of the import once directive in less? Option A, imports a file only once, ignoring subsequent import statements. Option B, imports a file and executes it immediately. Option C, imports a file conditionally. Option D, imports a file asynchronously. The correct answer is option A, imports a file only once, ignoring subsequent import statements. How do you create a CSS class in less with multiple selectors? Option A, class 1, class 2. Option B, class 1, class 2. Option C, class 1, class 2. Option D, class 1, class 2. The correct answer is option B, class 1, class 2. What is the purpose of the detach function in less? Option A, removes a property from a rule. Option B, detaches a mixin from a selector. Option C, separates two adjacent selectors. Option D, duplicates a rule with a different selector. The correct answer is option B, detaches a mixin from a selector. How do you apply styles only for screens with a maximum width and less? Option A, media screen and max width value. Option B, media max width value and screen. Option C, media max width value. Option D, media only screen and max width value. The correct answer is option C, media max width value. How do you use the important keyword in less to apply styles? Option A, class styles important. Option B, class important styles. Option C, important, class styles. Option D, class styles important. The correct answer is option A, class styles important. What is the purpose of the merge function in less? Option A, combines two values into a single value. Option B, merges two mixins into one. Option C, combines two rules into a single rule. Option D, merges two variables into one. The correct answer is option A, combines two values into a single value. How do you create a loop with a specified number of iterations in less? Option A, for I 1 to 10. Option B, loop I, 1, 10. Option C, each I from 1 to 10. Option D, iterate I 1 to 10. The correct answer is option A, for I 1 to 10. How can you use a mixin with default values for some parameters and values for others? Option A, mixin param 1 value 1, param 2. Option B, mixin param 1, param 2 value 2. Option C, mixin param 1 value 1, param 2 value 2. Option D, mixin param 1, param 2. The correct answer is option C, mixin param 1 value 1, param 2 value 2. How can you use a mixin with an arbitrary number of arguments and less? Option A, mixin args. ... Option B, mixin args. Option C, mixin args. ... Option D, mixin args. ... The correct answer is option A, mixin args. ... What does the spin function do in less? Option A, rotates a color on the color wheel. Option B, changes the saturation of a color. Option C, adjusts the hue of a color. Option D, alters the lightness of a color. The correct answer is option A, rotates a color on the color wheel. How do you use the keyword arguments feature in a mixin in less? Option A, mixin arg1, arg2. Option B, mixin arg1 value 1, arg2 value 2. Option C, mixin arg1 value 1, arg2 value 2. Option D, mixin arg1 value 1, arg2 value 2. The correct answer is option B, mixin arg1 value 1, arg2 value 2. What is the purpose of the E function in less? Option A, evaluates a mathematical expression. Option B, escapes special characters in a string. Option C, rounds a number to the nearest integer. Option D, converts a value to uppercase. The correct answer is option B, escapes special characters in a string. How can you use the media query feature in less to create responsive styles? Option A, responsive media max width 768px. Option B, responsive media screen and max width 768px. Option C, responsive media only screen max width 768px. Option D, responsive media width 768px. The correct answer is option B, responsive media screen and max width 768px. How do you apply styles to the last child of an element in less? Option A, last child. Option B, last. Option C, nth child last. Option D, last of type. The correct answer is option A, last child. What is the purpose of the auto prefix feature in less? Option A, automatically adds vendor prefixes to CSS properties. Option B, removes unnecessary prefixes from CSS properties. Option C, generates random prefixes for CSS properties. Option D, disables the use of prefixes in CSS. The correct answer is option A, automatically adds vendor prefixes to CSS properties. How do you use the iteration feature in less to repeat a set of styles multiple times? Option A, repeat n. Option B, iterate I, 1 to n. Option C, for I 1 to n. Option D, each I from 1 to n. The correct answer is option B, iterate I, 1 to n. What does the isColor function do in less? Option A, checks if a value is a color. Option B, converts a value to a color. Option C, determines the brightness of a color. Option D, checks if a color is grayscale. The correct answer is option A, checks if a value is a color. How do you use the multiple parameters feature in a mixin to accept a dynamic number of arguments? Option A, mixin args. ... Option B, mixin args. ... Option C, mixin args. ... Option D, mixin args. ... The correct answer is option C, mixin args. ... What is the purpose of the replace function in less? Option A, replaces a value with another value. Option B, swaps the positions of two values. Option C, removes a specific character from a string. Option D, updates a variable with a new value. The correct answer is option A, replaces a value with another value. How do you create a CSS class with a pseudo-element selector in less? Option A, class before. Option B, class before. Option C, class before. Option D, class before. The correct answer is option B, class before. What does the contrast function do in less? Option A, adjusts the contrast of a color. Option B, compares two values. Option C, combines two colors. Option D, checks if a color is in high contrast. The correct answer is option A, adjusts the contrast of a color. How do you use the default function in less to provide fallback values? Option A, property default value. Option B, property value default. Option C, property value default. Option D, property value default. The correct answer is option C, property value default. Thank you. Please visit Additional Sheet website.